Morning everyone, thanks for joining us this morning. If you could just bear with us for a few moments just to give people time to connect, that would be appreciated. Thank you. Thanks again to those who have just connected. If you don't mind just bearing with us again for a few minutes, just to allow others to join. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks very much for joining our NMIS Insights webinar this morning on COVID-19 innovation challenges and support within manufacturing supply chains. I'll just pass you over now to my colleague Jill McBride, who'll start the presentation. Thanks very much, everyone.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to this NMIS Insights online event. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jill McBride, and I'm a Professor of Innovation and Operations Management at Strathclyde University. So, as Deborah says, today we're going to be talking about how COVID has affected manufacturing in Scotland. Now, I have to say, this is my third NMIS webinar in the past 9 months or so. But if you're new to this and this is your first time joining, then a very warm welcome to you. We're pretty informal. I apologise if my cat decides that you sound like an interesting bunch and comes up to join us. As I say, very welcome. I hope you're going to learn something, but I also hope we're going to provoke some conversation. So it's not all just a one-way street about me talking at you. I'm hoping there'll be time for some discussion in the second half of this event. So before we get going, just a bit of housekeeping. I should say the webinar will be recorded. Some people can't make this time slot, so it will be available on the NMIS YouTube channel later on today. I think it will probably go up. But don't worry, your camera and your microphone will both be turned off. So if you're doing the dishes or you're placing your online shopping order, that's okay, as long as you're listening and taking part. We won't know the difference. So I'm planning to talk for about 30 minutes or so, and I'm joined by some of my colleagues who are working with me looking at COVID and manufacturing. So we've got Remy Zant and Benoit Fernandez, who are both based in NMIS, and we've got Tim Record, who's based at Strathclyde University with myself. So towards the end, you're going to hear more from them as we all engage in the conversation. And if you want to carry on the conversation through social media later, then great. Please do use the NMIS hashtag. Now, looking down the list of names who registered, I think most of you do know what NMIS is about, but there might be some of you who are here for the first time. So I've got a couple of slides just to outline what NMIS is about. And really, the National Manufacturing Institute for Scotland is a grouping of facilities and people, and it's all about supporting Scotland to become a world leader in advanced manufacturing. So the kind of things that NMIS hopes to do is address some of our challenges. So increase productivity within firms, increase productivity at a national level, make us more competitive, again, at a company level and at a national level, and really kind of work together and give us more strength. Now, NMIS is a collaborative adventure. It's operated by Strathclyde University, but you can see on this slide, there's a whole load of other key partners who've actually brought it to fruition. And it involves not just Strathclyde, who, as I say, operate it, but it involves all the universities across Scotland who can do something to support manufacturing, and also manufacturing businesses themselves and the wider support environment. And this is just a diagram that explains a little bit about the NMIS group. You've probably seen in the media about NMIS and the creation of a manufacturing zone, but it's not all about a fancy building. We know that in the last 12 months, the way that we've been operating. But I should point out that in this diagram, there's a lot of the NMIS parts, if you like, that are already up and running. So the AFRC, the Lightweighting Centre, the Manufacturing Skills Academy. And the stuff that's in purple there are the things that are still in development. So enough with the housekeeping. If anybody's got questions later about NMIS, again, there's people on the call, we can talk about that a bit wider. But for just now, today's topic is all about the effect of COVID on manufacturing sector. And as I say, I'm joined by my colleagues, Tim, Benoit and Remy, and we've actually got a project going that's been funded by UK government through the ESRC, which is the Economic and Social Research Council. And this basically came about because the team that I'm talking about here, we were chatting in the summer about the effect of COVID on manufacturing. And we were seeing some things that worried us. You know, we were hearing about job losses, we were hearing about challenges in supply chain, we were hearing about companies who were shutting their doors altogether. And we were also seeing a lot of people who were leaving the sector. So at that time, the UK government was inviting applications for research to look at different aspects of the pandemic. And we looked around and we didn't see anybody who was really looking at manufacturing. So we put in a bid and we got funded for an 18-month project that started in November and runs till April 2022. So this is the overall aims of our project, and this is just for information, just telling us telling you what we're interested in and what we'll be looking at over the next 18 months. But today I'm really focusing on that first question in green. The first objective for us is to understand what's happening to manufacturing because of COVID or influenced by COVID. So we're obviously at very early stages of our research. And at the moment we're out interviewing companies, really kind of hearing it from the people at the coalface, how they're being impacted. But the first thing that we did when we kind of started this project was we thought, what's out there already? So we looked at the stories in the news and we looked at other studies that were maybe relevant and other kind of data sets that were available. So if we cast our minds back to the summer of 2020, I'm sure, like us, you were seeing some of the headlines that were causing alarm for people who are passionate about manufacturing. So, you know, in June, we heard about job cuts at Rolls-Royce and in Shannon. In July, we had a report from some of my colleagues in the Fraser of Allender at Strathclyde, suggesting that we could be talking as many as 5,000 job losses just looking at aerospace. In August, we had more cuts from Alexander Dennis, and so on and so on. So that was really the kind of backdrop to us getting started in this. But now if I kind of turn my attention to the work we've done in the past couple of months. And what I've tried to do today is I've tried to pull together some headline figures, trying to present it in a kind of straightforward manner that people can see what the picture is kind of emerging as. So as I say, we started looking at the news stories, but then we looked at other studies and some of the data sets that are out there. And if we start looking at jobs, a study by Make UK at the end of 2020 suggested that nearly half of their respondents in the manufacturing community have made people redundant. And that's not too dissimilar to another study, again at the end of 2020 by Scottish Engineering, that said that more than 60% were either had or were planning to make people redundant. So we can see that, you know, these studies are not like for like, but the picture is starting to build. Now, the other worry we've obviously got is when furlough ends, is there going to be a raft of redundancies coming? And that worries me slightly because statistics show that 83% of manufacturing businesses in Scotland applied for the furlough scheme. Another couple of things that are in my head as things that are worrying me is the people we're losing. So we know that before the pandemic hit, a lot of people in manufacturing were worried about an ageing demographic in their workplaces. And what we're seeing is a lot of the people who are leaving manufacturing are the over 50s. And there's a few statistics there for you to look at. So are we losing some key skills? Now, I've not got validated data on this, so I've not put it on a slide, but I'm also hearing a worry at the other end that apprenticeships have dropped significantly. So the question is, are there going to be gaps in key skills in the years to come? Now, if we move on to how COVID is affecting the order book and turnover, again, Make UK have figures on that, and they're talking about 40% of the businesses they surveyed said that orders are decreasing or are continuing to decrease. Another study that was done through the Manufacturing Growth Programme, which is a programme that supports manufacturing SMEs, it suggested that 64% of the SME manufacturers were seeing considerable drops in orders and turnover. Another study that was done in England and the southwest of England gives us slightly more positive news. This study suggested that 25% have actually seen an increase in trade, and 14% were saying they've not been affected at all. So while some people have been hit very hard, others have actually come out of it in a positive way. So, as I say, clearly the studies aren't comparable, but we're starting to see some evidence of what's happening. The last figure there I've got, according to Scottish Government, manufacturing output contracted by 23.1% over the last year. And then we move to the supply chain, which has clearly been affected in many organisations. And we're starting to hear a lot about people saying we need to make sure we build in resilience, because people have had problems with supply chain, deliveries stopping, and meaning production has perhaps stopped or slowed down. So there's a big push at the moment of how can we stop that from happening and become more resilient. And I think, before the pandemic, we did hear about people talking about onshoring and bringing manufacturing back into the UK. And I think probably Brexit has increased that trend. But remember, that works both ways. So whilst the UK might be looking at how can we make sure that more of our supply is coming from the UK, that's also happening in other countries. And we do have a lot of firms who are not UK based. So that's one that obviously some people are very worried about. Now, if we look at sectors, what we can't do is we can't just kind of say sectors have all kind of been affected in the same way. Obviously, we've seen big differences, and it's not a broad brush thing. But we know basically that anybody that's been involved with travel, whether that be aerospace or buses or cruise liners or anything, they have been affected hard as travel has been restricted. So that might be people who are making cars, it might be people who are supplying parts into aerospace, it might be people who are making food for the airlines, travel accessories. There's a lot of people there who have felt the effect of COVID very, very harshly. We've also seen people involved with fashion being hit, as people aren't going out, they're not dressing up, they're not buying clothes. So we're seeing a lot in retail, but we're also seeing the impact in terms of manufacture of clothes and goods. But other areas, have seen growth. So I've got a picture up there of biscuits. I don't know if, like me, you've been eating more biscuits during COVID, but certainly if you look at the statistics, there's a lot of the things that we eat in our homes. So food and booze that we eat in the household, a lot of these companies have increased their sales and their turnover. But again, those supplying restaurants and pubs, the opposite has happened. Same with pharmaceuticals. A lot of pharmaceutical manufacturers have been very busy. Anybody that's involved with testing or vaccines, have seen big increases. But it's not true of all areas of pharmaceuticals or life sciences. But clearly, we've seen it affect people in different ways. We've seen innovation and disruption being a catalyst for change. And I think one of the things that we're hearing a lot when we're out talking to people is about people pulling together, about people coming together and working to try and get through this. That some of my team were on a call yesterday and we were hearing about some of the PPE successes in Scotland, where we've gone from before the pandemic, where none of the PPE that was being bought in certain categories by the NHS in Scotland was made in Scotland. Whereas today we're now at a situation where in some groups of products, we're up to 90% being produced in Scotland. So again, we've seen big changes in what people are doing, people pivoting and changing direction. So now might be a good time to talk about some of the positives. We've talked about the doom and gloom. What about the positives? And I certainly welcome that innovation has become much more normal to us. We're being forced out of our comfort zone. And again, in our interviews, a phrase that we hear quite a lot is giving us a chance to stand back and think differently about the future. So I think that again is a theme that's coming through. Other trends, in our household buying, a lot of us have been buying much more locally. And again, we're seeing that going through to the commercial side, that people trying to build more local and more resilient supply chains. Something that's clearly coming out in a number of surveys, one by London School of Economics and another one by Make UK, is that COVID has accelerated our digital transformation, with large swathes of people saying it has increased their digital journey. We've also seen the maker movement, people who want to build partnerships and collaborations and share resources. That's something we're seeing in the UK, and particularly I think I'm hearing in Scotland. And we're also clearly we're changing our working patterns and less travel and so on, and that's got positives for the environment. So again, just sticking with the some of the positives. We've heard stories of some of the food manufacturers in Scotland who are posting very good performance over the past 12 months. People like Tunnocks, have seen a rise as people eat more biscuits in their house. Mackey's last month reported, big jumps in ice cream sales. We've got Scottish companies like Omega Diagnostics over in Clackmannanshire, again, very much working on the pandemic and testing activity. And again, they've seen their share price increase in recent weeks. We've got the vaccine companies, again, who have been working, the PPE organisations like Keela that I talked about earlier, who are providing PPE to the NHS. And again, Brewdog's been on our televisions and in the news, not just pivoting and starting to make hand sanitizers, as have a lot of the beer and the whiskey people, but also offering to open up their pubs for vaccines. So again, it's that coming together that's coming through. And I think, for me, as I say, I think this fact that innovation is so important is a positive for me. And interestingly, we asked you when you registered for this event, do you think innovation is becoming more important for your organisation? And 100% of the people that had registered by last night said yes, they think innovation is more crucial. So this is where our project is going next. We're actually starting to look at how can we help organisations on their innovation journey. You know, me as being somebody who works in the area of operations and innovation, you know, for many years I've been helping companies with improvement. We've been talking about tools such as Lean and Six Sigma and so on. Now that might still be important for some companies, but for a lot of organisations just now, that's not their priority. They're looking for help in other directions. And this is really what we're trying to understand, and we want to help you on your journey. Now, some of you may have been part of the team who actually put together this blueprint for Scotland's manufacturing future, making Scotland's future a recovery plan for manufacturing. And certainly Benoit and Remy have been part of that team. And others might have contributed to the consultation exercise. And I think I'm right in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I think the consultation was open until, I think it maybe closed a few days ago. Was it Friday it shut? So I'm guessing that we'll now get more information about the way forward now that they've had that consultation about what the more concrete plans are. Now you can go and look at that document, the consultation document. It is online. It is in the public domain. I'm just going to pull out a few of the kind of headlines as I see it. So they set up 4 kind of working groups, and the working groups were to do with collaboration and networks, supply chains and competitiveness, adaptation and transformation, and skills and workforce. And as I say, you can go and look at what they're suggesting, but very much under the collaboration and networks, they were saying, like I've been saying, is that kind of coming together and sharing, pinching the as one from our Scottish rugby team, I guess. But that's the kind of theme of that. How can we put in place things that will help people to come together and work together? How can we encourage open innovation, sharing of ideas? And how can we really make sure that we're working in a sustainable and circular way? How can we make sure that waste from one manufacturer is used by another? So all these things very much to be welcomed. When they talk about supply chains and competitiveness, again, the themes that I've been picking up about resilience, building more local supply chains, more environmentally sustainable supply chains. How can public procurement help to make sure that Scottish manufacturers succeed? And also that digital is changing how people buy, and it's changing our business models. And how can we make sure that Scottish companies are on top of this and ready to make the best, to lead the way there? When we talk about adaptation and transformation, again, it's this theme of innovation that I've been talking about, and different types of innovation for different organisations. For some, it's looking at new markets, new products, new business models. For others, it's changing their processes and how they do things. And we know that there's a big push towards the sustainable future, coming out stronger, better, more sustainable. And how can we make sure that we work towards the net zero economy that we really imagine? Another part of the kind of actions that they're suggesting there is also about how can we make sure that our backers and the people that are helping us to make investments, our bankers, our venture capitalists and so on, how can we make sure they're on board with manufacturing? And then the final part of the recovery plan about skills and workforce, again, themes I've picked up on, looking at addressing some of the skills gaps, getting young people into manufacturing, jobs for graduates as well. And also the issue of, in some sectors, we might see a quick bounce back, a recovery. So in that respect, are we ready to get back to ramping up production, and have we got the people to be able to do that? And another theme that comes through is very much making sure that Scotland has got good jobs and fair work. Now, I actually think we've been quite lucky in Scotland, but because before the pandemic, we were investing in manufacturing support through things like NMIS, getting involved with the Advancing Manufacturing Challenge, things like green jobs, industrial decarbonisation. So we've got a lot of things in place, and I've put some of them in the slide here, but that's just a starter for 10. I'm sure there's lots of people on the call that can point you towards many other sources of support. And really what I'm trying to say in this call is we are in it together, and if people have got things they want help with, please make sure you reach out. NMIS is a good starting point, and we can certainly direct you to people that can help and support. But I'm going to leave you with a couple of slides here. I'm going to leave you with a reminder of the project that I'm leading at the moment. And I'm also going to talk about just summarising some of the key challenges we've talked about, and also some of the opportunities. And then we can have a chat and open up the conversation. But just to remind you, the project that I'm leading on, the next phase is really going in and looking at innovation. So my message is, if you're a manufacturer who wants to innovate and wants help, please do get in contact with us. We've got funding to do this. It doesn't cost you anything, and hopefully we can help you in your journey. And then my last two slides on the challenges. Some of the things that we think are going to be challenges for businesses going forward. Obviously, a lot of our people have got financial worries about just surviving. Some of them are worried about business changing in the future. What's the new opportunities, or where's business coming from? Some of you will be thinking about, how do we get investment in to actually pay for some of these new things we want to do? While others will be looking at supply chain and general change management issues. And as I say, the things we talked about the workforce, how do we make sure we keep our good people, we've got the right skills, and going forward, making sure that we've got people when things pick up. And my last slide, again, some of the opportunities we've talked about. So at this point, I'm going to stop talking, but what I would quite like to do, just to kind of get the conversation going, is I'm going to do a wee poll. And I'm going to ask you to tell us, out of these opportunities and challenges that I've talked about, what are the ones that you're seeing in your business? So Tim, can you launch the poll, or Benoit, can one of you guys launch? We've got two questions for you. The first one being, which of the challenges that I've talked about do you think you will see in the coming months? And I'm asking you to think about maybe what is the top 3 that are affecting your business. And we'll just hopefully we'll be able to see on screen what are the things that are really worrying people, and it can start our conversation. If there's things that you're worried about that aren't on that list, add it to the chat and we can pick that up later. So you should be able to see the poll. You can click on multiple things, but try and keep it to your top 3 so we get a better picture. So if you try and vote now, this is new technology for us. Let's hope it works. Okay. Are you seeing anything coming back, Tim? So we're just waiting for people to vote, and then hopefully we'll be able to see what the results are. Okay, do you want to put up poll number 2, Tim?
It's still people voting at the moment.
Oh,
so
all right, sorry, I'm rushing you.
Maybe 20 more seconds and then.
Okay, sorry. I think because I see a different screen because I'm the presenter, I'm not seeing the whole picture here.
Okay, great. I would go to the second question then.
Okay, so this is the opportunities that we talked about. So same question, what are the top 3 that you think your business might be focusing on in the coming months. And again, if there's things that you see that aren't on that list, please do add them to the chat and we'll generate some discussion. So we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then hopefully by magic we might be able to share the results with you. I might have to stop sharing and give you control, Tim. What do you think?
I can share the results.
Great. Will I stop sharing to let you do that?
No, I can simply share the results and then you see them as you see the questions.
Great. Has everybody voted?
Okay, I would end it then. I think we have enough results. So starting with question 1, you should be able to see the results of.
Okay, yep, got it.
Okay, great.
So the financial pressure and supply chain are coming through as the top 2, but yep, there's people in all of the things that we talked about. People worried about all these things. Be interested to see if people in the chat have talked about other things. We'll pick that up in a second. And then what about the opportunities going forward? Again, something in each category. Rethinking the future. New business models. Oh gosh, there's quite a lot there. Okay, thanks, Tim. Okay, so I'm going to stop at that, and as I say, I'm going to turn back to Tim, who I can't see the chat because I'm the presenter, so I'm relying on the guys to tell me what's been happening. Has MD posted any questions or any comments?
Yeah, so far we don't really have any questions. I would highly encourage you to just whatever's on your mind, just pop into the questions and answers section. And this is really meant to be more of a interactive discussion here. We're really happy to hear what's on your mind. So just whatever you want to add to this conversation, just please do so. And please do so now.
I think we have one question in the Q&A area.
So somebody talking about automation being important going forward?
Yes. Yeah, it's about automation in the food sector and how that would make manufacturing more effective, I believe the question is here. Yeah. And well, we have another question. Has there been much feedback on the interaction of COVID crisis and Brexit challenges?
Yes, I mean, I didn't say that along the way, but I should have done. It's a very hard one to unpick, isn't it? It's been a double whammy. And I think that's what we're hearing from people is sometimes it's hard to tell what's COVID related, particularly when we're talking about supply chain challenges. So what's been brought on by COVID, what's been brought on by Brexit, and there's also the other trade issues. You know, with some sectors being hit by different trade challenges. You know, people that are dealing with the US, for example.
So yes, just to come back on the automation one, which was more a comment than a question. It's automation is probably one of the innovation of the future for many sectors, but it's not the only one. There is different way to innovate. There is the automation. There is a lot of work in digitalization, and then it's all about business models, how we can innovate in terms of business model, as well as supply chain management. How can we be more interactive and more interlinked between the different suppliers to have a more effective and more sustainable supply chain? And I just wanted to emphasize what you were saying, Jill, about just now we are really trying to understand the landscape and what was the impact of COVID on your businesses. But in the next stages, we want to gather, after gathering those information, we want to do some scenario analysis to be able to provide in the later stage of our project some insight and ideas of how we can help you to overcome this crisis.
Yes, in the next stage, we're going to be working with some people who are experts at looking at the future and looking at strategy and running some workshops. So if anybody is interested in thinking about what the future might hold and thinking about how it might apply to their business, we would welcome you to get in touch, and you can join us on this journey. Nothing on chat, Tim?
There is a comment in the chat which I'm happy to pick up on. I'll just read it out just for the benefit of everyone. It's just a comment that says, automotive focused company, survival is the main objective and has a huge negative impact on innovation and R&D. Has all been postponed / cancelled and still not sure what is happening yet. And that's clearly a key area for ourselves and others, other support agencies to focus on in terms of supporting companies in survival. You know, in the short term, if we're keen on, our main goal is to develop UK-based manufacturing, Scottish-based manufacturing, and the starting point for that is to ensure that the companies that are already here continue to survive and then go on to thrive. So be really interested to hear if there are any particular areas that we could help with that survival part, whether it's things that we could do ourselves or things that we could do to signpost companies to other areas that and other organizations that can support that survival part. And it's interesting that you've commented that it does have that impact on innovation and R&D. So thanks for that.
Any others, Tim?
Okay, yeah, we do have another one. I'm going to read that out again. We've seen some great examples of acceleration and collaboration in the medical device and pharma responses to COVID. But the question here is now other examples, yeah, in other industry sectors of like collaborations which didn't really exist before.
Yeah, I think we are seeing that, and I think that's what we're starting to try and unpick and understand, and also ask the question of whether some of these things will continue or whether they were just things in response to a crisis situation. I mean, yes, we've seen it in retail. You know, if you look around your local area, certainly in my local area, we've got people who haven't been able to open cafes and things, but then supplying baking to shops that do sell goods that are allowed to open. You know, so there are lots of examples, not necessarily in manufacturing, but we're certainly looking for one more in manufacturing sector. Maybe some people have got things they could share just now if you've been involved in some of these collaborations.
Yes, and just to sort of pick up on that, it's of direct interest for us is twofold. One is, what is the underlying capability that exists in Scotland and across the UK? And again, that comes back to that survival thing. But then also, how can we and other organisations support the creation of new supply chains around these short-term challenges, but also the emerging challenges of the future around the green economy? How can we reconfigure that existing capability to create those high-value manufacturing supply chains based in Scotland and the UK?
We do have another question. Do you think government will be promoting not just build back better, but build back greener?
Absolutely. Well, certainly in the recovery plan that we've seen from Scotland, very much talking about a sustainable future, a circular economy. That, as I say, I've not party to what happens next with that. You know, what funding will come out and whatever. But there definitely seemed to be a strong steer. And we know that there is money available through the Industrial Decarbonisation Fund and the Green Growth Fund, and probably many others that other people on the call know about. So yes, I think it is making people think about coming back much greener.
I think that also ties into one of the comments and questions in the chat area as well, around the efforts to ensure sustainability in the short-term emerging PPE and medical equipment manufacturing sectors. So yeah, it is about building back better, and we've seen evidence of, you know, as soon as the immediate emergency need for PPE and medical equipment is underway and being resolved, that people are very quickly turning to, you know, how can we do this in a more sustainable way as well.
Is that it, Tim, or is there anything else?
Yeah, I got one more in the chat box this time. As we see more growth in certain manufacturing sectors, for example, PPE, medical equipment manufacturing, what are the efforts made to enforce and ensure sustainability in these sectors?
I've got to be honest and say I don't know the answer to that one, but I'm guessing that it is something that's been discussed with the recovery team and how we can promote that rather than enforce it, maybe. Anything to add, Benoit or Remy? Have you been involved in any of these discussions?
Well, that was my comments earlier on, was really referring especially to the second part of that comment there, about the, you know, linking that back to the building back better and build back greener. So, you know, once the initial emergency response is being resolved, then people are already thinking about how to do that more sustainably, particularly with things like, you know, masks and recycling of masks, that we know that this is already on people's radar.
I think as well, Remy, you've been involved when we've been talking about strategy for manufacturing in Scotland. You know, some of the sectors that we have been talking about decommissioning and remanufacturing, and there's definitely a theme there, isn't there?
Yeah, and a lot of that comes particularly from government and policy positioning, to say that there is this very strong emphasis on the green economy, which creates a very strong demand signal for us to then align our support activities, but also for companies to start positioning for that space.
Yeah, I don't know if any of our colleagues from SIR, the Scottish Institute for Remanufacturing, are on the call. I can't see your faces from where I am, but they're certainly very much, that's something that they are looking at. So if anybody's interested in that, please do get in contact with SIR through Strathclyde or through NMIS.
Okay, and we got another question, more about skills and motivation. So how do we get the next generation of engineers and scientists more interested in manufacturing, simply to fulfill the manufacturing requirements of today already and of the future as well?
I think that's one we've been battling for long before COVID, but I do think it's it is a really important one. You know, how do we make manufacturing attractive and sexy? I mean, I think Make UK are doing good work, you know, highlighting the you know, good jobs, good salaries in manufacturing. But I would love to see us doing an awful lot more, getting out into the schools and engaging with young people. That's just my opinion.
Yes, it's a difficult one, this one, but within NMIS, we have created, and it's now starting to run. It's a manufacturing skills academy. So so there is programs that you can join, and you can join as just after you got your degree, or you can come later on in your career. So we are trying to work with that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's another good point, Benoit. The Skills Academy is doing a lot for people who are already in manufacturing or wanting to come into manufacturing from other sectors. And certainly where I'm coming from, based in the university, you know, we've gone online with all our kind of teaching recently. So there's so many materials out there that could be used if we can find a way to do it well. And I think that the NMIS Skills Academy is probably a good way to do that. Any more, Tim?
So I think that was the last question for now. I just got one coming in.
Oh.
So with our economy very much a service sector and an ever-growing presence in the tertiary sector and even quaternary sector, how do we grow or bring back manufacturing as a whole to the UK?
Okay. I think that's a question that gets asked a lot, is, you know, why is manufacturing important? And, you know, for me, I think it's, you know, it contributes so much to our economy by way of jobs. It's the knock-on effect of manufacturing, you know, our exports. So for me, I think manufacturing is important. And I think through COVID, I think we're actually seeing more emphasis on that, people recognising that we do need to make our own goods as well. So there's people much better paid than me and in much higher positions that are battling with this. How do we actually do it? But I think there's a real will within people like us that are on this call to get behind this movement.
Yeah, and I think government at the UK level and at a Scottish level are really looking forward to the next generation of manufacturing who will come live in the next 5 to 10 years, and how we can make sure that our companies just now will have the capabilities to enter that manufacturing market when it will come live. Yeah. So I'm talking about electrification, hydrogen. There is a lot of thinking at the government level. So it's quite good.
I think what Benoit says there, I mean, obviously we've got the industrial strategy. We've been working on industrial strategy and challenge fund activities in areas like you talk about energy and electrification and so on. And what we've got to make sure is that our manufacturers are ready for this. You know, that they're ready to pick up and go with this and make these new products that are coming through. Okay, I've kind of got an eye on the clock. If we're out of questions, are we out of questions, Tim?
Yes, we don't have any more questions.
So I think I'll leave it at that and say thank you so much to my colleagues, you know, the guys on the team, and also to people in NMIS who help make these things happen. And just to encourage everybody, if you do want to get involved, if you're looking for help, either contact any of us. We've got our emails on the screen there just now. And if you want to get involved in our project further, where we can help you with innovation, you know, great, just drop me an email. So thank you very much for just now. And as I say, you'll be able to get a recording of this on the NMIS YouTube channel later.
Okay, thanks very much, Jill. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us on today's webinar. And thanks again to Jill, Benoit, Tim and Remy. Shortly after this session, you will receive a survey, and we'd be really grateful if you could take a few moments to complete this. It does help us shape future NMIS Insight webinars. We do have one next week on Wednesday, the 24th of February. It's digital machine verification. and we'll have presenters from our machining and additive manufacturing team, and they'll be joined by machine verification and software specialist CG Tech Vericut. If you'd like to find out any details about that, you can have a look on our website at nmis.scot. But thanks again for joining us, and I'm just going to bring the webinar to a close. Thanks again.